Hi, this is Megan with Moose Historical Fencing, and today I'm going to be showing you one method for painting your HEMA mask. So to start off, I have a few examples of masks I've painted previously. On this mask, I used acrylic on the face shield and then an oil-based paint pen on this part at the top. These two masks were free-handed, but today I'm going to be using a stencil. I will be using acrylic paint again today, but I've also heard of people using spray paint or airbrushing onto their masks using this method. So today I'm painting a mask for a fellow moose. Big thanks to Jeremy for letting me use his mask in this video. My first step, of course, is to measure the mask so that I know how big to make my stencil. And for this, I like to use a sewing tape measure. You could use a regular one, as long as you can kind of bend it around the curves of the mask. I got pretty lucky with this mask. All of the masks that I've painted previously have had kind of a peak in the middle, but this one's nice and smooth, so that'll make it a lot easier to stick. If you're painting a mask that has that peak in the middle and you want to use a stencil, I'd recommend cutting the stencil in half and using one on one side. I haven't tried that technique before, so if you do, let me know in the comments. I do make a lot of stencils, so that's kind of just what I feel like would work best in that scenario. So you can see I'm measuring at a bunch of different points along the mask, just trying to get a rough idea of where everything is, kind of where the curves lie. Today I'm using a Cricut. You don't have to use one of those. You can use masking tape and an X-Acto knife, or even a store-bought stencil would work great. And here I'm just double checking my work again. Doesn't need to be perfect, just kind of want a good idea of where things lay, so when you go to stick your stencil on, it doesn't end up all crooked. So I'm not going too deep in this video into how I make stencils or even applying it, because it's very dependent on what design you choose and kind of what stencil medium you're using. So I'm going to apply off camera and I'll see you back here. The magic of editing, we're back! I've got my stencil applied, and now I'm just going to run through the tools. Of course, you'll need brushes for painting. Use brushes that you don't like very much, because I use kind of a dappling method and it really wrecks them. And this tool here is great. We're using this to just poke out any of the holes that might get clogged with paint. Got all my colors mixed here. You just want to be really prepared before you sit down to paint. And what I'm doing first is I'm going in with white on any of the areas that'll have yellow or a lighter color orange. Those colors don't show up great on a black background. Here you can see I'm using that tool. I got a little bit of paint in one of the mesh holes. I'm just kind of poking that out. You don't want those in there. And yeah, I'm just going in with white paint in all of the areas that will have a lighter color. You can kind of smudge it around on your finger. I like to use pretty watered down white paint for this method. And for this one I am actually brushing right on the mask. Usually the technique I use is I kind of take the brush and kind of pounce it into the actual mesh. That kind of distributes color better in my experience, but of course whatever method works for you, play around with it. And let's speed things up a little bit. And now we're starting off with our color. I'm doing kind of a starburst pattern in the middle of this sun, so I'm just going in with some nice dark red and kind of fading out on the edges there into the lighter oranges and yellows. I apologize for so much of this being off camera. I tend to paint very close to my face so I can see better. This was kind of a spur of the moment artistic decision. I wanted to really emphasize that starburst look, so I just went in and kind of painted that in the middle. I'm gonna fade that out a little bit with the blending so it's a little softer as well. Here's the best part. This is my favorite part. Pulling off the stencil, it's always so satisfying. And there it is. I have a few places that I'm gonna touch up, and I'm going to add some extra black lines in the middle to give it more of an illustrated look. So here's that. here's the finished product. I added some words on the overlay off camera. For this particular mask, if you want to paint on the overlay, I recommend using either fabric paint or mixing your preferred type of paint with a fabric medium. I always use acrylic mixed with fabric blending medium, and I use it on most of the fabric pieces of my kit. I highly recommend it. It holds up pretty well to washing. Another thing that I recommend is sealing the mesh parts of your mask with some type of protective spray. The sealant you use will depend on the medium you use. Again, I always use acrylic, so I use an acrylic top coat. If you want a more weathered look on your mask, you can skip this step. For example, the Dark Souls mask from the beginning of the video, I didn't use any form of sealant on, and it's held up great. It's over a year old. If you do end up using a sealant on your mask, I recommend stuffing it with newspaper or a towel and then taping off any areas that you don't want that spray to end up. I don't recommend putting a sealant over anything on a hard plastic surface like in these pictures because it's more prone to chipping. That's all I have for today. I hope this video was helpful. Please make sure to like and subscribe for more moose adventures.